We started a small company, built it up to about 22 people. On February 4th, 2010, we launched a free app in the App Store called Siri. About 2 weeks later, Steve Jobs calls our office unannounced.
Read me the message.
He's like, "Hey, it's Steve. What you doing? Want to come over to my house tomorrow?" And we went, and that's when discussions started about buying our company.
Hey Siri, play dance music everywhere.
Apple had something called voice control in their iPhone already. It only did two things, if I remember right. You could play a song and you could call a contact. And so it was, basic speech recognition. That's what they were working on.
3G speed, so it really downloads data dramatically faster, and that's important when you're browsing. As you know, the iPhone has revolutionized mobile browsing.
And I guess they downloaded the app and tried it, and Siri was really the first large scale broad domain voice assistant. There wasn't anything like it really before, but there sure were afterwards. I mean, with Microsoft and Cortana, and Google with Google Assistant and Alexa.
Apple's Siri versus Google Assistant versus Amazon's Alexa versus Samsung's Bixby.
At the time, we had a very different take, and he must have downloaded the app, tried it, and said, okay, this is the future.
I am the voice of Siri.
There she is. I kind of got chills. Her real name is Susan Bennett. How long ago did you get the voiceover gig for the Apple iPhone?
The original recordings were done as text-to-speech voices. The whole month of July 2005, 4 hours a day.
Sure. So in 2007, we left SRI. There were three co-founders, myself as kind of VP engineering, Tom Gruber was our head of design, and Dag Kittlaus, our CEO and marketeer. Our office was actually in downtown San Jose. The only other tech company I knew was this little one called Zoom. Now Zoom owns both buildings. The phone rang. It was Dag Kittlaus's cell phone. We didn't have office phones. And we could see it said Apple Cupertino on the caller ID. And we're like, swipe, swipe. And when the iPhone back then didn't always answer right away.
Okay.
And you're like, come on, answer. And finally, like on the seventh swipe, we answer, and that's when we heard.
We wanted to do something that was really different than that, and really was fun, and really was great design.
And that was the moment. So Dag was like, guys. And so Tom and I crowded around. We're on speakerphone. That's when we hear the, hey, it's Steve, what you doing?
And you could just tell the voice instantly.
We're like, Steve Jobs is calling us. And our first question to him was, how did you get this number? Because we were, Siri, I don't know if you know this, means secret in Swahili. And we started as stealthcompany.com with a dash, so I could get the domain name for $7. And we had this whole secretive motif. So no website, no sign on the door. And yet our phone's ringing and Steve Jobs is calling. We're like, how did he find us? So that was the first question. And if I remember right, Dag's like, well, I'm supposed to go to the opera tomorrow, but I'll see if I can change my plans.
Sure.
And so we changed plans, and he asked, he's like, well, can I bring my co-founders? Steve said, who are they? Yeah. He described Tom and me, and he's like, yeah, bring them along.
Okay.
So we would have killed him if he hadn't asked for that. So his house was in downtown Palo Alto. It was pretty modest, it's a little ranch house in Palo Alto, maybe around 2,000 square feet.
Just like all technology.
It was. He had one kind of manservant open the door. We walked in. We saw his wife was around, but everything was super clean, very Spartan. Almost nothing there, like a few Ansel Adams on the wall, but it was like. Everything was tasteful and minimalist is how I would describe it. And nothing too fancy, nothing big or ostentatious. Fine, asked me, what was it like to work with Steve Jobs?
Yeah.
And I say the first thing was he had this fire in him. He wanted to win. He was driven is the right word. And I'm going, this guy's a billionaire. He's reinvented multiple fields. He could just chill and enjoy life a little bit. Nothing. We were talking earlier about how life is short,
Yeah.
and you want to accomplish and do important things.
Yeah.
He felt that, I think, more than anyone, and just
I actually
wanted
love
to
that.
achieve.
Yeah.
He was being nice, but right away we got into our first argument, and it was great. The first argument we got into was, he goes, Adam, do you think Apple should buy, and then he named a company, which I won't share here. And I said, no, I don't think so. And he's like, what? Why? That's not. And he, like so many people, feel they're the smartest person in the room, and they're necessarily right. He was looking for, he wanted to win, so he always questioned his view and was always looking for someone who had a different opinion. And then he'd push on it, like hard.
Just to see how
And he would bang, 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 push back.
and how you came to your conclusion.
Right.
How much
So,
do I trust this?
so if you can't back up your assertion with data, facts, logic, he would knock you aside. Like, don't waste my time. But if you could, he was fast. He was like, that was valuable to him. And at the end, we went back and forth and back. It was like escalating. It was great. And he said, interesting. Okay, maybe I'm going to think about that. And Apple never ended up buying that company. So I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I always felt I could bring up an idea.
Yeah.
I could be heard. I could discuss it with him. He would listen. He would take it in. Many times we had arguments about the product or the vision. And sometimes, I always knew who gets to make the final decision, but I always felt heard. And he said, Adam, I've heard you. I understand. We're not going to do it the way you proposed this time because of A, B, and C. And I'm like, great, you're the boss. And that was something I valued.
Plus, if you want to go there and impress the boss, instead of saying what they want to hear, you impress them by saying what they don't want to hear with logic.
There were stories about that. Eddie Q, who's one of the most, senior, powerful people at Apple, still runs all of iCloud and everything, was an engineer. And there's this story that he came in and was in a Steve meeting. And at the end, Steve goes, who are you? And he goes, I'm Eddie Q. He goes, you report to me now. Right. And it was that kind of
thing?
It was that, like, being right and having a strong opinion. That's what Steve wanted. He didn't want yes men. He didn't want to think I know everything. He was always questioning to get to the truth, the real hard view.
If you know how much you want, would you have said it out front?
So here's the truth of it.
Okay.
When we started the company, the three co-founders, Dag, Tom, and I, we sat down and said, what do we want out of this company? And we went through all different, if we got an acquisition offer, would we take it? Do we want this, is it financial? We're trying to get a financial outcome. Are we trying to follow an idea? Do we want to stay independent forever? Do we want to go IPO? It's important early on to be on the same page as co-founders and to be prepared. So we actually had this discussion, and our formula was twofold. We had product things that we wanted to achieve, and we had financial goals that we wanted to achieve. We were all kind of later in life. I had never started a company until my mid-40s. Tom was even older than myself. Dag was right around my age. So we were kind of looking for a certain number in exit that we could say to our family, we will be okay. I call Siri my safety release. That having a mortgage, we had a 30-year mortgage. I had a high salary, but I go, I don't know if I can be relevant for 30 years. Right. And that's just to pay off my house. Right. Am I going to have enough to retire? This is incredible stress. So for me, I wanted a number that I could pay off my house, have a little nest egg, and I could say to my family, we will be okay. So I knew from the get-go. At some point, he said, I want to buy your company. And he said, how much? I go, well, we just raised a B round of valuation. We've signed this huge deal. It was actually one of the largest mobile deals ever negotiated, I think. It was going to put us on tens of millions of phones above the fold. on Android, on BlackBerry, on everything, with one of the major carriers. It's out there in the press. I'm not giving secret things. But we had just raised a B round at a valuation like 2 months ago. He goes, so how much did you raise at? And we go, here's our valuation. And he goes, well, I'd like to buy your company. And he said, that valuation plus 2 months, like plus a little bump.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's kind of good on paper, I guess. So starting
you know,
point,
because like you're valued at this.
Right.
We'll give you a little bump. We didn't have to. You know how in Shark Tank the investors go, well, can we talk about it for a second?
Yeah.
Because Tom, Dag, and I were prepared.
Yeah.
We didn't have to look at each other. We just said, thank you. We're flattered, not interested. Goodbye. And we left.
What? That's how it ended?
About a month later.
Did you go to Microsoft? What did you do right after that?
No, we
Were you just like,
no.
guess what Steve Jobs
No,
offered me?
we
You should have called up Ballmer or Gates or whoever it was at that point.
we had talked to Microsoft. We had, everyone kind of knew about us, but we weren't looking to be acquired. We said, now, if ever the numbers get above our thing and the product goals are met, we'll consider it. It wasn't like, but we had just signed, we had money in the bank, we had this big deal. We were excited about the future. It was easy for us, even though Apple, for me personally, and maybe for the other co-founders, was at the top of the list of if we were to ever be acquired.
Great company,
They care about user interface. They have more credit cards than Amazon, and Siri was a do engine. In fact, doengine.com still routes to Apple because of Siri, our company. But we wanted to lower the barrier of buying a ticket, buying commerce, and if you just had your iTunes credit card, everything could just go on that. You wouldn't have to enter it. Would it be so smooth and seamless? And they had the largest developer community. And we always wanted to be an open platform, just like the iPhone was itself. Comes with 10 great apps originally. Then they open up an app store, and now it changes the world. We said Siri will start with 10 great apps, domains, but then we open it up and it'll change the world, right? So I'm going, they care about UI, they have credit cards, they have developers, it's the best fit for us. But we walked away on that day, said thank you, we're flattered, appreciate it. It's not our plan to sell, goodbye.
It's crazy. It's craziness.
Yeah. So a month later, he and Scott Forstall came back. They're like, well, do you have patents? We're like, yeah, we told you we had patents. Oh, patents. Okay. And they were looking for excuses. And the
we didn't say that. Then we can give you more.
The numbers started now going significantly higher. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of crossed our threshold number, and we're like, this could be interesting.
This could be it.
And then one of our investors found an added, very clever term to throw into the negotiation that would take our already significantly increased number and then get maybe an additional 25% on top of that.
In the long run?
Not in the long run, straight away.
Oh, I wonder.
Like
I wonder if that term would work in this.
It boosts it up. Yeah.
Can we type it into what's the term?
No, I'm not going to share. I'm not going to share. It's a.
What do you mean? It's a secret word?
No, it's not a secret. It's not a secret word, but it's a strategy that one of our VCs came up with, and I think it was brilliant and risky. It could have blown the whole deal.
Do you think he understood it, or do you think
he knew exactly what it was.
Did he call you out on it?
He called us out. So literally, we were having. So it went down. The final negotiations. We were actually at Tom's house.
Yeah.
We had discussed. We had to get board approval. Like, okay, we're interested. Look, we're getting an offer. It's this amount of money and this, and the board. They loved us. They were unified against the sale of Apple. Now, I want to just to Apple. I want to just say that we had just raised a B round. Our own investors said, "Yeah, we'll give you additional money, but it'll be at this valuation." Yeah. We came in with an offer like 3 months later at 10x the valuation they said we were worth,
and they
said, "We refuse."
They thought they'd get more than 10x in the long
the
run.
board,
The team was
they loved us. The board was unanimous against, and so the three founders had to lock arms and say, we want to do this, and you
Right.
can't do this without
'Cause
us.
if not, they would they might pick you apart. And,
We just locked arms. We came in and we kind of forced our board to agree. And then the last thing was the investors said, well, why don't you try adding in this additional term? It'll give us.
Another
And
25%?
Dag had, another 20 or 25%, which, it's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
It's millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. And so Dag had to make the call, and he's like, Steve, I've got some great news. We've discussed with our board. They agree. If you agree to these terms, we can sell you our company tonight. Term 1, we want cash, and term 2, the stock, and term 3, clean, escrow, blah, blah, blah. So there were, and then he had to make the call. Does he add this extra 20% term or not? He could blow the whole deal. He decided to go for it. Steve said, what are you doing? That's some kind of venture capital bull crap. And he goes, Steve, that's exactly what it is. But if you agree to it, you can have the company tonight at your price. Because it was a way that it kept the top line price the same, but in effect, we would get sort of back end or, extra money, but you could say the company was sold at X.
Yeah.
Right. But
he doesn't have anyone to impress except shareholders.
Yeah, but they're optics, right? They're optics.
Yeah.
So, and Dag felt that he cared about the optics, saying that he got this price more than the actual dollars coming out of the bank.
Right.
That was his his read on the personality. And Steve paused, and the famous words, he was like, pause. We're like,
Yeah, that's the last
and then he goes, all right, but when you get to Apple, you better work your asses off. And then we signed. So that's the story.
And then celebrated? You pop bottles of champagne?
We were trembling. We didn't know what it meant.
I feel like it would take a while to get it.
I'll tell one last little story,
Yeah.
secret story about this. So once you actually sell your company, you agree to sell, you still have to go through due diligence. You have to file with the SEC, and there's a quiet period, and no one can talk until it all
Any
gets.
other employees and
No
everything
one knew all this. No employees didn't know any of this. And so
the next day you showed up after hanging out with him and just pretended
nothing,
because
it could still fall through, right? So you don't know.
It's done.
And so you're holding your breath for a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
And during this quiet period, one of the conditions, the negotiation things, is Dag had said, hey, Steve, if we ever sell you our company, would you come by the office and just welcome the team? That would be a really nice thing. And he goes, I would do that. And so during this quiet period, it was actually during an Apple's earnings call. So he's on the Apple's earnings call. He walks out of the earning call early, got up, he walked out, got into a silver Mercedes, drove down to San Jose. We were holding an elevator, making sure no one saw, because if they see Steve Jobs walking into the startup office, it could blow the whole deal. We spirited him up to our office, and we had told all our employees, we said, hey, we're going to have a strategy and roadmap meeting. Meet in the conference room at 2:00, but you're not allowed to bring your phones, which was a weird request.
Right.
So they're all gathered there. And then in we walked with Steve Jobs. Everyone's jaw dropped, right? We thought, we weren't. He wouldn't let us video it. I know. It was incredible, and we thought we'd get 5 minutes. He'd just say, "Welcome to the team." He stayed a full hour answering every question. We had one engineer who had been working for 2 months on the Android version, the BlackBerry version of Siri, and he raises his hand and goes, what's going to happen to the other other device versions? What about my work? I've just spent and he was like, and Steve Jobs started whistling taps, which I thought was like, oh man. He spent an hour, and then as we're walking him down in the elevator, Dag says to Steve, he goes, wow, this must be really the fun part of your of this process, going to meet the team that you acquired and whatever, and surprising them. And Steve goes, yeah. He goes, that was really fun. Pause. I've never done that before. And I think he never did it after. And so we were the only startup who ever got that. And it was such a special moment for the team. It was so funny and important and exciting.
This is right here on the dock. We have access to Siri. That's right. Siri is coming to the Mac.